two, three.
There's many types of fields, but like that's one of them. But the heart generates its own field through its magnetism that extends very far out the body. There's somnoluminescence effects, like when your all of your meridians end in your lungs actually, but when you hum or you're breathing, you're driving phonons, which are basically sound particles, and they'll be driven through meridians. It also converts to biophotons in the blood. Your nervous system is another type of type of field, and probably familiar with like alpha, beta, theta, gamma waves that will travel
Right, right,
in the
right.
nervous system. But
Hmm.
even then, the nervous system, because it's so disjointed, it sets up a field for information to be carried on the top rather than through it. And then even on a cellular basis, if you look at each individual cell, the cell membrane, a healthy cell membrane is like 70 to 90 millivolts. An unhealthy one is 50 to 70. If you've got a very serious disease, it sort of drops below 50 and that's when you have.
Welcome to the Transform Your Mind podcast, the show that helps you heal from past trauma, renew your mind, and transform your life from the inside out. I'm your host, Myrna Young, and today's conversation is going to challenge how you think about healing, health, and what it truly means to get well. My guest today is Harry Massey, a true pioneer in the field of bioenergetics and quantum wellness. Welcome, Harry.
Great to be here. I want to pronounce your name right. Minor.
Myrna, right.
Minor. Yeah. Um,
That's okay. Yeah, so welcome. All right, so let me give you guys a brief introduction. Harry's work didn't begin with technology, it began with tragedy. After a catastrophic mountaineering accident left him bedridden for nearly a decade, Harry experienced firsthand what happens when every health system fails you: Western, holistic, and even functional medicine. Refusing to accept the lifetime of pain and limitation, Harry turned to physics and energy. What he discovered changed not only his life, but the way we understand the root cause of illness itself. He went on to co found one of the world's first research and development companies in bioenergetics and has spent over 2 decades creating technologies that measure, manage, and restore the human energy field. Harry is the founder and CEO of Energy for Life, creator of the GIST process, which stands for gratitude, intention, surrender, and trust, and the visionary behind innovations like Me Health Device and GEM Wearables, which detects and corrects emotional energy imbalances in real time. Today, we're going to talk about why biochemistry alone may be outdated, how emotional blockages become illness, and what it really means to heal at the source, beyond the pills, protocols, and system management. If you ever felt that you've tried everything and still don't feel well, this conversation is for you. So let's dive in. I am very curious about your story, Harry. Your journey into bioenergetics didn't begin in the lab. It began with your catastrophic mountaineering accident that left you bedridden for nearly a decade. Can you take us back to that moment in life and what it taught you about the limitations of traditional health system?
Absolutely. So when I was 21, I had these three accidents that led me to be being bedridden for the next 7 years. The first, I was ice climbing and fell off Ben Nevis and fractured my spine. The second, actually, I was climbing again in the Alps, but I basically got a really, really bad fever. And then, yeah, the third, I ended up back in the Alps doing lots of climbing, and I got so exhausted, I got stuck in a tent for a week, and after that, I drove back to England, and it took me like every 40 minutes, I would have to rest for half an hour to get back, and that began sort of this period of full-on bed-bound chronic fatigue syndrome. Although, I managed to get an MBA, and but I finished it in a wheelchair, and then I basically tried everything you could think of on from a holistic point of view, from your acupuncture to IV drips to every diet, etc., etc. And after about 5 years of trying all these different things and not really getting anywhere, I just sort of thought to myself, why don't I study where energy comes from? And of course, energy, well, ultimately I didn't have any energy, so that's why I was looking at it. And the statistics of chronic fatigue syndrome are pretty dismal. Like, most people don't recover if you've had it for 3 years. I think it's 80% of people don't recover. And I just thought to myself, like, well, like, looking at all the trying to eradicate symptoms, and, like, there's a supplement for killing off the Epstein-Barr virus or whatever it was. I was like, this approach just isn't working. And so I basically flipped it on its head and just decided to look at the positive aspects and work out how energy was working in the body when it was working optimally, and thought, well, I'm just going to go towards that. And that 180-degree sort of switch was, immensely helpful. And I guess, for relevant for your audience and podcast, I think the other big thing that it did for me actually is it gave me purpose. So I ended up meeting this scientist from Australia who'd been mapping out the energy of the human body, which is the field of bioenergetics, which is the study of energy in living systems. And now he ended up healing me, which is quite a long story in itself. And he moved to England, where we formed this R&D company, where we went on to make all these different health devices that help people. But it was also a part in helping me to heal. That even though I was in a, you know, I mean, I had no money, I had no energy, no health, I could barely walk, but actually having a purpose, and the purpose was, relatively straightforward. It was like, well, if we can help figure out how to get people better, a few things might happen. Like, one, I'd probably, I should get my own health back.
Mhm.
It'll help other people get their health back. It can create an income, because I couldn't work at the time, because you can't have a job, and this isn't an era way before remote working existed, but I couldn't have a normal job either. So I just thought those three things could happen, and of course that is all of those things ended up happening, and we ended up with a lovely company, and I got my health back, and I think it's helped like a million plus people at this point, so that's quite nice.
Wow, that's beautiful. All right. Well, I'm almost stuck at the fact that the first accident, you said you fractured your spine, but you still kept climbing. So you weren't paralyzed, I'm assuming.
No, a fracture won't paralyze you. I actually didn't realize that I had a fracture for another 2 years. And in stories you condense timelines, but this happened over
Okay, right.
it happened over my university years. But
Okay.
yeah, and anyway, 2 years later, I was paragliding and had an accident paragliding, and I was rushed into hospital, and then they basically said, well, you didn't break anything this time, but by the way, you've got a fused spine. You must have fractured it before. I was like,
Fractured.
oh, that's
Okay.
obviously when I fell off Ben Nevis, and it's probably why my
Okay.
back hurt. But 21, you don't. Yeah, and I just brushed it off and got drunk.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's the one part. Now the second part is every person I've spoken to, and me personally, because I'm big into energy, they always talk about the energy of the body is the chakra systems, but you talk about it differently. How is it different? This bioenergy. which you said is how the body uses energy. How is that different from the energy
You
systems of the
know,
body, like the chakra
so
systems?
if you look, so yeah, well, we have to roll back thousands of years to answer that question. But so if you roll back like 5,500 years or something,
Mhm.
the Indians were actually the first to discover meridians, but they called them nadis, and then they also had the chakra system. Then
Hmm.
the Chinese actually took that, and the Chinese are sort of more they're more technical and scientific, and then they sort of more accurately worked out the meridian system, and obviously the meridian system, Chinese medicine has become more prolific across the world than the Indian sort of meridian system. So, and because
Okay.
it's honestly more clinically useful.
Hmm.
Now, Peter, who's the scientist from Australia, he actually set up the first acupuncture college in Australia, and originally he'd gone into China and studied under some Chinese masters and translated everything out of Chinese into English. And anyway, he formed all the first acupuncture college in Australia. And but because it became part of Melbourne University, and Melbourne University didn't like they basically did, they wanted everything to explain through chemicals, so he left under protest of that and just started doing his own private research for the like another well, I guess another 30 odd years. I think it
Hmm.
was 25 years from when till I met him, and he basically started like mapping out the energy and information of the human body at a much more detailed level than the meridian system. So
Ingredients. Okay.
like there's many types of fields, but like that's one of them. But the heart generates its own field through its magnetism that extends very far out the body. There's somnoluminescence effects, like when your all of your meridians end in your lungs actually, but when you hum or you're breathing, you're driving phonons, which are basically sound particles, and they'll be driven through meridians. It also converts to biophotons in the blood. Your nervous system is another type of type of field, and probably familiar with like alpha, beta, theta, gamma waves that will travel
Right, right,
through the
right.
nervous system. But even
Hmm.
then, the nervous system, because it's so disjointed, it sets up a field for information to be carried on the top rather than rather than through it. And then even on a cellular basis, if you look at each individual cell, the cell membrane, a healthy cell membrane is like 70 to 90 millivolts. An unhealthy one is 50 to 70. If you've got a very serious disease, it sort of drops below 50 into, and that's when you have
Hmm.
cancer, etc. So all of your cells have their own field, which
Hmm.
create an organ field. So, in our
Wow.
system, we have, well, we call them organ drivers or energetic drivers, where every organ generates a field. There's
Wow.
there's information energy that travels through the body, which is correlates to the Chinese marine system, but it's actually more detailed. So we call them the energetic integrators. And anyway,
Wow.
there's many types of fields in the
Okay.
body, and their totality we would call the human body field, but it is from
Mm.
sound, light, electromagnetism. Yeah, it encompasses all of it.
Wow. 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 Yeah, and I've always been thinking about the chakra system. And people come on and talk about Reiki energy and all that, but yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I did know that the heart has its own magnetic field, and it attracts things and it's magnetized. But you said all the organs, all the cells. Wow,
Yeah,
that is.
the chakra system, like physiologically, there's a lot of like nerve plexes in those areas. There's a concentration of nerves around the around the chest, around the throat, etc. So that
Mhm.
that's what that would that's what those are. But yeah, yeah, it's a lot more detailed than that. Yeah, a lot more detailed.
Wow, awesome. All right. So then the other question was, what exactly was happening with you that you needed? your energy. You said you went to acupuncturist at one point in time and that didn't help. That was your holistic way. And that didn't help. So just, I'm just trying to set the
I was
foundation
actually
for.
just too stressed I'm looking back 30 years. Um, but it like I got sick because of a lot of trauma, which is why I was doing the extreme rock climbing, ice climbing, etc. And I was just constantly in that fight, that fight and
Oh,
flight
okay. Fight and
mode.
flight.
And
Right.
I
Okay.
could just not, there was no way of relaxing. And I had no idea about those concepts at the time.
Mm,
At the time, but yeah, looking back, if I'd dealt with that earlier, but I was in a very stressful situation. Where I had little money. I was actually, I had to go back home. Actually, my dad died. Well, actually, my dad was had Alzheimer's, and he died
mm.
about halfway through that bedridden period. So it was extremely stressful for my mum and in that household. So yeah, it just wasn't an easy time.
Okay. So, the reason that you were sick was because of stress and you didn't have any energy. Is that that's why you're bedridden and couldn't work? Because,
There's a
okay.
multitude of factors. Yeah, I mean, I was in a lot of physical pain from the fracture.
Right, right, right. Okay.
I did get Epstein-Barr and have a fever, so I got
Okay.
significantly worse after that.
Okay.
Had like post-viral, um, but I was also extremely stressed. So
Stress, right?
it
Stress
was,
and no
yeah,
energy.
all of
Okay.
it,
All
all
right.
of it, all of it.
So, okay. So I'm getting it now. I'm getting the foundation of what we're talking about here. So that's amazing. So, what do you think was missing from the functional medicine and the Western medicine and the holistic medicine that failed you? I mean, because they're not going to work from energy. So, how would you say that that failed?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but let's start with so when you're looking at science, basically like physics is at the top of a pyramid, and the
Mm,
rules of physics govern chemistry, and biochemistry it governs physiology. And when we're looking at the physics part, there's only really two things. There's energy itself, and then there's the information that gives that energy patterns. And so if you can basically alter the energy and information, that has all of these ripple effects. So that's why it's the strongest. But I'll answer your sort of question more properly. The problems with biochemistry, the big so you're this big bag, like there's this view that you're a bag of chemicals, and it's this perfect sort of Newtonian mechanical machine that a chemical bumps into this chemical, and it has a knock-on effect, and it goes and does X, Y, Z. The problem with that is it's inordinately slow. So if you eat a supplement, let's just take a I don't know. You take turmeric for example. You take turmeric, you eat it, the liver has to process it, and then it gets that anti-inflammatory chemical in your body. Well, that took too long. That takes a very long time. That can't explain how you're alive. So there's 70 trillion cells in your body. Every cell has 3 trillion operations happening every single second. And that has to
mm,
be coordinated almost instantaneously for you to stay alive. Eating a chemical and it traveling through the blood and it getting to your cells is just too slow. So that's sort of one reason it just can't keep you alive. The second reason, with chemistry, it's very true in it's actually true in the supplement world as well as the pharmaceutical world. It's just, I don't like to badmouth the supplement world, but I will a little bit. But basically, every supplement or every chemical or molecule it has these second and third order effects that aren't the primary thing. So I'm going to go back to turmeric.
mm,
Turmeric, yes, anti-inflammatory. Now, if you're male, it's less important as a female, but if you're male, it'll drop your testosterone by 30%. And that, so if somebody, now if you've got a headache or you cause some inflammation and you take it for a day or two, perfect, like that's what you need. But if you take it every day, like the turmeric manufacturers would want us to do, for a man, that's going to have all these other knock-on effects and knock on
Right.
their
Yes. His
confidence. They're not going to be able to
testosterone will be
build.
zero. Right.
Yeah,
I get you.
well, yeah. It won't be zero, but yeah,
I know. Yeah.
it gets knocked
Being,
off
yeah.
a lot.
Right.
So that's the other problem with, and people get this idea that there's a magic, a magic bullet or a magic supplement that is going to cure everything. It's sort of just, yeah, anyway, it's just not true. The body, even if the body just worked on chemistry, it's working, on thousands and thousands of different chemicals and biochemical reactions. So like if you do one thing, it just has all these other knock-on effects in the body. So that's a big problem with biochemistry. And so, from a bioenergetics point of view, if because what you're dealing with from a physics point of view is basically the body's master overall control system. And if you can work out where in the body there's energy blockages, i.e., where it's not being efficient with its use of energy, or there's a distortion in the information, and you can correct that, you're really correcting things at the source, so that there aren't negative consequences. Like if you correct the informational blueprint of how a liver works healthily, that isn't like giving a little chemical that will have a side effect. It just helps the liver overall. So that's
Mhm.
that's why I prefer it. And I anyway, I'm a living living proof of it. Proof of it.
Wow. 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 Yes.
Now
Yes. Yes.
it's not to say you shouldn't have a healthy diet. You absolutely should. You
Right.
absolutely should. But it's just saying you're not, the answer isn't in some like one missing amazing supplement that's
Right.
being touted as the latest superhuman, food.
Yeah. I love clean air and I breathe quite a lot of it. Did you know that the air inside your home can be more polluted than the air outside? Each of us inhales and exhales an average of 11,000 liters of air every day. At that rate, even the tiniest levels of airborne toxins pose significant health risk. As someone who talks about healing mind and body and longevity, I pay attention to what I'm breathing every day. That's why I partnered with Air Doctor. Their medical grade air purifiers are designed to capture ultrafine particles like allergens, smoke, pet dander, and other pollutants that can affect your sleep, focus, and overall wellness. If you want to upgrade the air in your home, head over to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code TRANSFORM to get up to $300 off today. Breathe better, live better. It's
No.
so true because I heard someone say the other day that a while back, I don't remember when, but they said that if you were to just take a multivitamin, then your health would be a whole lot different. He said it's just one little thing you can do, take a multivitamin, right? And then I heard Dr. Peter Attia, who is, very famous right now as a longevity expert. Just a couple days ago, he was being interviewed on CNN, and he says a multivitamin is a waste of time. So that's
Yeah.
basically what you're saying here right now, right? That these vitamins, and I take like
Well, pretty much those
15 of them every
multivitamins,
day.
they're so low quality and in such low dose. Um, Actually, they're just excreted straight back out of the body.
Yeah, I
They're not
know.
even bioavailable. Yeah, they're not even bioavailable.
So I
I mean,
should
just
stop my
calcium
vitamin
alone, like
regimen.
you have to take you have to about take yeah, I think you have to take eight large supplements a day just to get calcium. So like a multivitamin is a joke. Yeah, it's sort of a joke. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, huh. you're changing my yeah, because I probably just pee mine out because I take a lot of vitamins. I take them all. Yeah, and I started that from Deepak Chopra about 20, 30 years ago when he says that multivitamins, because so I guess everything is changing as you get more involved in the bioenergetics and science. You're recognizing these things because yeah, Deepak Chopra wrote a book that's called Live Longer, Grow, what is it called? Grow Older, Live Younger, something like that. And that has been like my Bible since the early 2000s, like 20 years ago. And in there, he talk about, multivitamins and taking multivitamins. So I've got a, big system of it. But anyway, all right. Well, it's always good to know these things. So one of the boldest statements that you've made is that the biochemistry is outdated and that emotional blockages, not toxins, right, um, are are what makes the difference. So, can you talk about that for a minute?
Sorry, which makes the difference?
Yeah, you're saying that biochemistry is outdated and that emotional blockages, not toxins, or
Okay, sorry. Yep, we
inflammation
can talk
are
about
the real causes of illnesses, right?
it. I'll state it a bit more fully. So
Mhm.
basically, when you're looking at the body, there's certain activities that leak energy from the body, and so for example, if you're in pain, the ATP of your muscle will actually be basically operating at 3 to 5 times the normal rate. So it's basically just burning up energy. And if you could relax that muscle and get out of pain, it wouldn't. And then you have more energy available. So that's one leak. There's all of these other leaks when you're looking at all the different organ systems. If they're not operating properly, they're being inefficient. However, one of the biggest ones, that's accounts for about 30% for most people, is your emotional state. And
Mm,
basically, if you have a negative emotion, and let's take anxiety. If you're anxious, you're basically overthinking. It's pretty easy to see. Well, if you're overthinking, you're burning up more energy, and your brain consumes a lot of energy. But not only that, it has a cascade of things, and it'll create more cortisol and negative hormones and stuff, and that has another cascade of inefficiency that's going on in the body. So yeah, from a bioenergetics point of view, I'm always looking at how you can stop leaking energy, and then we're
mm,
looking at the body and saying, okay, well, how can we then make the energy that is used in the body more efficient? And yeah, I have a lot of different ways of how we can transform people out of negative emotional states to positive. It's probably where you're going next.
right. Okay. All right. So yeah, that leads right into your GIST process, which means gratitude, intention, surrender, and trust, as a way to regulate emotional energy in real time, right? So can you talk about that? And then maybe you can talk about um, how meditation, how is that different from meditation? Because you mentioned just now about if you relax a muscle, then it wouldn't hurt. And one of the things that I do is, if I've got pain in my body, then I breathe into it and relax it, and the pain goes away. So I guess that's almost the same thing you're talking about, energy leaking from that pain. So yeah, can you talk about your gist process and how does
Yeah,
it
sure.
work?
Sure. Um, so it stands for gratitude, intention, surrender, and trust. But you know, primarily, what I do is I have a journal, and basically I write down what I'm grateful for each day to start with, and that's fairly straightforward. I just look at yesterday and look at all the good things that have happened and are working out, and even the bad things. Like there's a subtlety, but with something that looks bad, actually, if you look at the positive of it and where it could be leading, it actually transforms it to being a good thing. And if you stay in the negative of it, you basically just get trapped in this negative vortex of it, and it'll, take you down a crappy track. So it's actually very important to also be grateful and look for a positive in something bad. And it is funny, the universe will, a lot of things that look bad in the moment, it's just because the universe also works on efficiency. It's actually trying to orchestrate your life for you in the most efficient way. But sometimes some of those little steps look bad. So, and you just can't see the bigger picture. So,
Listen, I agree. One of the quotes in the Bible is says everything works out for your good. So there.
yeah, no,
hmm
it does. It
hmm
does.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, whether you like it or not. Um, and
hmm
so, but then when you when you basically put yourself in a state of gratitude, you're basically putting yourself in a state of receivership for you would say for God to to deliver your prayers. I would say for the universe to deliver your intentions. But you're putting yourself in a state of receivership. Then I write out my intentions for the day, and in general I'm putting them in a context of what's good for relationships, what's good for my my inner self awareness, what's good for my health, what's good for, in my case I have a business, but you could be your career, etc., but you call it wealth. And then that sets out your intentions. Then the next part is you basically just surrender to the universe or God to work those out in your highest interest, and basically just trust, and just trust that they happen. And then I just repeat that every single day. And very, very quickly things work out in a wonderful, in a wonderful way. Now I wish I knew that when I was 20, when I was super sick, but I know it when I'm 50. So I do it when I'm
Listen,
50. But
this is a good conversation. I mean, you're touching on so many things that people miss, and fate is similar to that. Without the gratitude part. But yeah, you've got
how
to
much
surrender
free
and
will do
touch
you
and
think
send
you
your
have?
intention. What was that?
How much destiny do you think you have? I'm curious.
How much destiny I think I have, me personally,
Yeah.
a lot. I think that yeah, I think that I came here with a purpose, and God helps me. I mean, you're right. God and the universe is interchangeable because God is a supreme being, but I say the universe too because I know that what happens, like the concepts that you're talking about here about gratitude and
I say the
intention and
universe
surrender.
because I
Yeah,
don't want to
it's
get
universe, right?
because people have so many different religious beliefs. I don't want to entangle,
Right, right,
like
right.
I don't
But
want to
it works on the
not
same thing.
but
To
it's
me,
all the
they're
same. It's all the
interchangeable.
same.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah,
Um
I think that I have purpose and I have destiny. And if you were to follow my life and my trajectory, you're very right. I've had so many things that I thought were bad that worked out for my good. So I follow you totally on that. Right. Yeah.
no, yeah, it's good. It's good.
So
Yeah, I
how
mean
does
I've been bedridden and ending up with this health company.
exactly
It's completely destiny. Like I had no plan to be sick, and I had no plan to end up with a career, as in
right?
R&D with health. So that's very destiny-like. But at the same time, I also had free will to, to make it happen. Like other people in the same circumstances might have
It's
just
true.
stayed sick
Yes.
and crumbled. So it's like you're given the opportunity, but it is up to you to make the best of it. And there's plenty of times I've not made the best of it for sure.
Well, you've grown. It sounds like, when you were 21, you were operating at a different mindset, which is basically what
Well,
this
yeah,
show is about.
survival, survival.
Right. Yeah. This show is about mindset, and you're very right. The people that do something with their destiny and their purpose, is someone that has an operating system that says, you know what? I'm going to use this for my good, or I am going to help other people because I've gone through it and I want to help the world. And you have this serving mentality, and that's what comes out of it. There's other people that would stay in the depression, stay in the negativity of what someone did to them, and whatever. And they would come into a coaching conversation like when they're 80 and something happened when they're teenagers and they're still carrying it because they don't know how to release it and they don't know how to.
Yeah, you said something about serving. I think one of the simplest rules for, for success, in whatever state you're in, that's absolutely what, dragged me out from. I mean, if I hadn't decided to help others and figure
Right,
this out, like there's no way that scientist from Australia would have moved from Australia to England to join and
right,
help me. Like no
right.
way, no way. And
Yes,
it's a billion to one chances that would happen. But why did he do it? Because he he believed me when I said we're basically gonna build this health system and bioenergetics that is going to help lots of people, and so that's why he did it. That's why other people joined the company. That's why we ended up with customers, etc., etc. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I call it win-win-win.
yes,
But like in everything I do, there has to be a win for society at large, a win for the other parties that I'm directly involved with, and of course, yes, a win for me. But like if you
yeah,
have all those three, it works out. But I always imagine I I always imagine the other two wins. You don't really need to imagine your own win so much, but if you can think through exactly your set of actions that will make it a win for the other parties involved, it just happen. I mean, it just happens because it's logically like, why wouldn't it happen? Like, it's good for
yeah.
them. Why are they not going to do it? So it's pretty easy principle to live by.
Well, yeah, that's pretty good. I just heard one of the guys that's become my mentor now for financial success. He was talking just a couple of days ago about when you're making an offer, you have to see the success of the person you're making the offer to, else it's not going to work. And I'm not
Yeah,
very visual.
I would take it further, right?
Okay.
That's true, but you actually have to make sure your offer and what you're delivering really is going to help them, right? Like that's the ultimate
Right,
thing. That's
right.
the
Yes.
ultimate
Well,
thing.
that's what he's going with it. He's
Yeah.
going with it there. I mean, you're making an offer, you're selling somebody something, and you're saying that this is what my offer is going to do for you. But he's saying that if you can't see them using your offer for what you're saying it is, then you're just bullshitting or you're not
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, it's a different concept for me because I'm not very visual and I've never, like you said, see the other person. For instance, I interview authors. Do
You
I
don't have to,
do I see their books? I
you don't
don't
have to
do it.
see it. Actually, feeling it actually is. Can you feel it?
I guess so. Yeah, right.
Because
I can feel it
feelings
or I can think it.
feelings more powerful than seeing it. I mean,
Okay.
the ultimate visualization is visualize it, smell it, hear it, feel it. But the most powerful part
The feeling,
is feeling
feeling.
because
Okay.
it's
Okay.
it's the feeling part that that basically alters your resonance or your frequency or however you want to put it. But
Mhm.
that's the bit that will actually connect to the universe to get it to happen. So it's not
Yeah, wow. So
thing.
I have to work on that. I mean, it's just amazing. So that's
Yeah.
basically, the space that you're in. And yeah, I mean, I love that. And looking at the wins for everybody, right? And feeling it and seeing it and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, with your devices, I'm sure that that's what you're doing with them. You develop technologies like the My Health device and the bioenergetic voice scan and the the gem wearables that detect and correct emotional energy imbalances. How do frequencies work to eliminate pain or emotional distress faster than pills? Um, and I think that you've already, this is just a question I have here, but I think we've kind of answered that. At least I understand how it works because you've mentioned about the
There's a couple of
frequencies.
different,
Yeah.
yeah, the pain and the emotional part is two separate things.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have a wearable that's called GEM that stands for Guided Energy and Emotional Management, and that will basically pick up your TCM pulse, and from that it'll translate into your different emotional characteristics, and then it'll 24 hours or 24/7, it'll basically personalize a bioenergetic signature back into your body that'll help balance out your energy and emotions. And that it basically uses photons and a PMF field to transmit information directly into your body. And then the other device, when you mention pain, that's the My Health device. That's a bigger device, and that uses lasers and a pretty strong, basically a strong electromagnetic field that you just place directly on where the pain is, and it's pretty interesting. But yeah, your tissue has much higher impedance, i.e., like and lower resistance because water. When you're inflamed, basically you get inflamed, you get water in that tissue, and but by putting current in there, um, basically it'll make that tissue more efficient and it gives it the energy it needs to heal faster. And like a wound,
Oh,
you can speed up like a bone fracture or a wound by like 5 to 6 times the normal rate
wow.
by doing that. But yeah, if it's a muscle tear, but I think it's a similar type of thing. But yeah, they're two separate devices.
Okay. Wow. And what about the voice scan?
So the voice scan, that's quite fun. So basically, But basically, you just record. I should be able to give a link out for that, I think. But
Okay.
basically, people, well, anyway, you just speak into a microphone for 10 seconds, and it looks at all these vocal biomarkers, and it'll give you an assessment of the health of your meridian system and your organ system and some emotions. We should have a link for
I've
that.
actually used something similar. I don't remember what it was called now, but a friend of mine told me about it, and it was pretty, well, anyway, she told me that I just record my name and something else about me, just talk. And this thing was able to pick up it wasn't my meridians or anything like that, but it's picking up health issues in your body just by speaking into that. And of course, I have my Fitbit, which is a wearable that
Yeah,
tracks something totally different, so I can understand how the wearables work.
yeah,
But the
yeah,
Fitbit doesn't fix anything. It just tells me. Yours
yeah.
yours fixes it, right?
No, it does. Yeah, if people want to know what that is, it's e4l.com/gem. That's where you can find that.
Where which one?
Oh, the wearable. Yeah, the wearable.
Give that to me again.
e4l.com/gem, like GEM.
Okay. All right, I'll add that to the show notes. But you can send me any of the links that you for anything that we've talked about here, and I will just add it to the show notes. So yeah, and I would love to use your gem wearable as well. Yeah, I would definitely like to use that. I've always been very big on energy, but I've been big on energy for manifestation. I've never been big on energy for healing from what you're talking
Well,
about because
I made it for both, but
okay.
actually, our thinking was basically that's to help you manifest because
Yeah.
the biggest thing that stops you being manifesting is ending up in these negative emotional states and
Yeah.
getting like drawn into these negative vortexes of whatever
Yeah,
drama
exactly.
other people might be involved in. And by staying in the by help it gives you awareness because it tells you when you're going into one of those negative states. B, it gives you some practical tips of how you can get into the positive state, but and then C, it's also correcting your state in real time. But yeah, the more say, yeah, for me it goes hand in hand with the gist and the journaling. Like if you do that journaling and you're being grateful and setting your intentions and you're staying more in a positive and a more higher energy state, that's when all your dreams
It will
actually happen.
manifest.
Yeah,
Yes,
it manifests
sure.
way more easily. So yeah, they really go hand in hand together.
Wow, wow. So that's amazing. All right. So, as we wrap up, for anyone that's listening who feels stuck, um, uh, can you share how the GEM wearable technology applies to the GIST principles in real time to help them regulate emotional energy and the nervous system balance? I know you talked about, how does it work with the nervous system? And I know that we talked already about, you know, what you just mentioned. But if you want to add anything to it to help someone that's really listening to just put it all together.
Yeah, basically it's just a wearable you wear, you wear it. It's going to tell you which emotional state you're in out of 13 different ones, like anxiety or frustration or joy or impatience, etc., etc. And when that comes up, it'll give you some hints of what you can do, but then it's also sending in a bioenergetic signature at the same time to correct it. And they just work together. So you would just wear it and then use I say the gist. I think I can probably get a, it's literally not, it's not actually sold as a course, but I think if someone contacts the company, we do have journals. We can send out journals to people, and actually pretty quickly it's going to be in the Gem app for sale. Such if you have the Gem, you'll be able to get gist. That's the easiest way.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, yeah. It's sort of
Okay.
we're
So
in
let's
right in
say that
that
I'm angry.
launch stage.
Let's say that I'm angry. How would this device help me?
So if you're angry, that's basically a worry pulse, and basically it means you've got blocked chi in your liver. And the opposite of anger and frustration is just being decisive. So in Chinese medicine, the liver is the overall general. It just has to be very decisive. So what it means is it means you haven't made a decision about something, so like what you're angry about, and if you take a decision, take action, you'll get through all that anger. So that's what it's saying. you're
Wow.
just you're just you're just stuck in some situation or some train of thought in your head, and actually you've just got to make a decision and move on. I mean, because once you made a decision, even if it's uncomfortable, the action, right? But at least you've made the decision. You get through it, and
Wow. And then
then
I become
uncomfortable.
unblocked.
You
That's
come,
beautiful.
you're not angry anymore.
Hmm.
And then so from an energetic point of view, we basically imprint you with liver meridian and liver organ energy and gallbladder actually and gallbladder. So it's
Hmm.
supporting it's giving your liver and gallbladder the right informational energy blueprint to help correct it. But yeah, I
Wow.
mean, what I would do in that situation with the journal, so one part of that journal is awareness. So I would be writing down what I'm what I'm frustrated and angry about, and then what sort of decisions I could make, and then when I set my intentions, I'd be like, well, even the gratitude, I'd be like, well, that frustration or anger have made me aware of this, and I'm grateful because now I can take action, in this
Wow.
certain way, and then I'd set the intention like, okay, well, today I'm gonna ring that person up, and gonna I'm gonna speak my truth and just move through it. And I don't mind whatever they say back. I'm just gonna do it. And then you're gonna be
Wow.
through it. So that's how I would
Wow.
handle that.
You'll make a good coach.
Yeah, I've never coached anyone. I might try. It might be fun.
Yeah,
Might be
you'll
fun.
make a good coach. My goodness. This is deep work. This is really deep work. And the fact that you have something that will help you with it, this is good stuff, because so
I
many
mean, I'm a
people,
writer. I'm a writer. Rather, anyway. Like I create the things and the philosophy.
yeah, no, it's pretty good. Now, you mentioned that you had an MBA. What is it in? Is it in this field?
Oh, it was in business. Yeah,
It's a
Masters in
business.
Business Administration. Yeah.
All right. So it wasn't in bioenergy or anything like that. Okay. Wow. Wow, Harry, I have learned so much from you today. I've got to definitely go back and listen to this myself because I've learned there's some really big touch points that we had there today.
Well,
So,
thank you for giving a really good interview. Because lots of people interview and they don't research or think of good questions. So thank you for doing that.
well, thank you. Yeah, which is why I don't. I create my questions. I don't come on and just wing it. And when you do that, then you have a better interview. Even though, like, I've asked you several questions that wasn't on my list, but it's okay for me to branch off. But when you have a framework, then you have the important things that you want to come across. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. All right. So tell our listeners how they can connect with you, what your website is, how they can get these fantastic products.
This will be the first podcast that I'm just starting a newsletter for myself. So yeah, my website's harrymassey.com, and there'll be a newsletter subscribing. You know, why not just email us at subscribe@harrymassey.com and I'll make that the subscription because I'm just
Okay.
on a company website that has all the products is e4l.com or energyforlife.com. They both work.
Okay.
Um, I think, that's it. I do have Instagram that's Harry and YouTube that's Harry Massey Official. And those I'm just getting going.
Okay. Harry Massey official on Instagram. Okay. All right. Well, I will definitely tag you when the episode is live so that we can share this out. This is amazing stuff. And I'm definitely going to go to your website as well. Your company website, the e4l.com gem, because you said that's where you can get the gem wearable. I need to
Yeah.
try that.
No, perfect.
I need to try that. Wow. So, this has been a powerful and eye-opening conversation, Harry. For you that's listening, it's probably because if this episode resonated with you, it's probably because it touched a deeper truth that healing doesn't begin in the body alone. It begins in the energy, emotions, and beliefs that we carry every day. And if there's one thing Harry taught me is some other things about gratitude. I've always heard that gratitude is a great, if you want to manifest anything, which is the space that I'm in when I'm dealing with energy, you're grateful, and that puts you in an energetic receptive mode, which is basically what he said. When you're
Yeah, the
grateful and you set the intention.
appreciating, like being
Right,
grateful, appreciating, being enjoy, being abundant,
right,
all of those states are incredibly helpful.
right, exactly. So that's what I've used it
Not
as.
always
So
easy. It's not always easy to do. Well, the hard bit, and you learn it over time, is being in those states, even when
when things are
supposed
bad,
short-term
right?
negative things happen.
Yes.
And there is a certain amount of like randomness and fluctuation and things that are outside of our control that just just happen. And like people get very linear, thinking like, well, I'm doing everything right. I'm so positive this, that, why is that happening? And then they lose faith. But the universe is not, it's not like this clockwork thing. There's
Oh.
things that are happening way outside of any of our control. Um, but yeah, just the more you learn to roll with it, the better
Yeah,
it gets,
I
the
mean, and
better it
like I
gets.
mentioned, the Bible says everything works out for your good. And I've personally seen that in my life where you think things are bad, but it actually works out for your good. So yeah, um, Harry also reminded us that our bodies are constantly communicating with us. And when we learn how to listen, really listen, we can stop fighting symptoms and start restoring balance to the source. So if you want to learn more about Harry's work, his technologies, or the gem wearables, you'll find all the links to his work and what basically we've talked about here, his personal website, the business website, how to subscribe. You'll find it on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I encourage you to explore with curiosity and discernment, and most of all, with hope. And yeah, subscribe to the newsletter because this has been like a 45-minute interview. He has
I've
got
got some very
he has got
really
some
really interesting
knowledge.
things to say. Yeah, no, I've been thinking about it for a long time actually, and yeah, it's going to be a physics first healing newsletter, but you won't be able to read the stuff anywhere else. I guarantee that.
I know, which is amazing. So you continue learning. Yes, so I love it. All right, so Harry, this has been eye-opening and amazing. I love our conversation. I love my learning. I love, one of the things you said that every cell has energy and every cell is communicating. And then you talked about the liver, which I never paid much attention to the liver before. We pay attention to the heart and we pay attention to the brain, but I never paid much attention to the liver. And you've highlighted that. So yes, I've learned and I want to continue to learn from you. So I'll definitely be one of the ones to be signing up for your newsletter. And I'm going to get me one of those gem wearables. So as we wrap up, do you have any last words of encouragement?
Um, I think the theme for this podcast would be whatever is happening in your life, have a look at it and look for the potential gift in it. And I just think that will transform your life over time.
Aha, I love
Okay.
that. I love
Okay.
that.
All
That's a
right.
nice little bow, working on the fact that, find things to be grateful for, even though it might not look like something you've been grateful for, because yes, it works out down the road. And Harry's life is a total example of that. My life too. Like maybe everybody that comes on this show's life. They've all come through something. That's why they got
We
something to
all
talk about. Sorry?
I don't know anyone who's had a totally smooth life.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. We all have challenges. We all have trauma.
That's the
We all
point.
have to come through it. Right, right. So,
Perfect.
all right.
All
If
right,
this,
well, thank you very much.
oh,
Okay.
hang on. Let me wrap
Oh,
up.
sorry.
Is this
Sorry.
episode spoke to you? Please share it with someone who feels stuck in their healing journey. Sometimes one conversation is all it takes to open the door to a new year for a new way forward. Thank you for spending this time with me and Harry on the Transform Your Mind podcast. Um, uh, until next time, namaste.
Namaste. Easy.